Good evening, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the south. A student is found dead in halls at Bournemouth University. The latest on what police call a chemical incident.
Could this man hold the clue to a spate of attacks on women in Southsea? Police hope this CCTV image will help trace a person they want to speak to.
Let's go, hang on, let's go.
Snow or no snow, Matt and his Huskies are going for it. Meet the UK's wildcard entry, taking part in a major European championship.
And what made the butterfly flutter by? We go behind the scenes at Wisley's famous glass house. Good evening to you. Investigations have been continuing throughout the day to try to find out how a woman died in a suspected chemical incident in student accommodation in Dorset.
Emergency services were called to a property in Gillett Road in Poole last night. It is part of the student village on the edge of Bournemouth University's Talbot campus. The body of a student was found inside.
Our reporter Richard Jones is live at the scene for us tonight. Richard, what more can you tell us?
Well, last night, this quiet corner of a student village was cordoned off by the emergency services. The residents of a number of blocks of flats were moved as a precaution, while what are described as chemical substances were removed. The police haven't yet said what they were. Students have been describing what they saw. A cold evening at the start of term. Most students were watching TV or working on assignments when they heard sirens and saw flashing lights. Student Josh Wild went to find out what was happening.
There was a police cordon up. We were slightly worried, not really knowing what was going on. Spoke to one of the police officers and they said that it was to do with dangerous chemicals, but they couldn't really tell us much more at that time. Obviously, we were slightly what was happening.
We were pretty worried. We made sure that, we asked the policeman, is that okay if, we can be around here? We make sure we were safe. He said that we should be fine, and it's just contained in one flat.
It's just really surprising because you see it on the news, but you don't expect it really to have happened where you live, just down the street from you. So I think there was, an air of shock and bewilderment really that this has happened so close to home.
Today, the university offered support to any student affected by the incident.
An email came around this morning from the university, I think, to all students to just basically tell us that if anyone was affected or felt like they needed to talk to someone, then there was procedures and things in place for that to happen.
The university says the student involved did not have ready access to chemicals. They're still waiting to find out more from the police. Well, today the police have confirmed that the student who died was a woman in her 30s who was alone in her room. They're at pains to stress that there are no suspicious circumstances surrounding her death. The coroner and her next of kin have been informed, while inquiries continue.
More in our late news for now, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. In other news, communities along the Sussex coast are being advised to be prepared for high tides and possible flooding tonight and tomorrow. The Environment Agency is erecting temporary barriers at Littlehampton East Bank and putting up extra defences in Arundel, Newhaven and Shoreham.
So the tidal surge is coming down the east coast at the moment and it's going to head into the channel. We're not expecting any problems here or elsewhere, but we just want to make sure that there's quite a bit of uncertainty around the forecast, that we're as prepared as we can be and ready to respond. So people can get the most up-to-date flood warnings by going on the .gov.uk website and just searching there for flood warnings.
And of course, we'll have a full forecast from Simon later in the programme.
There are calls for tighter border controls tonight after a convicted murderer from Holland, allowed into the UK, attacked two police officers in Sussex with a hammer.
Afghan-born Jamshid Perouz killed his female tenant after watching Taliban videos, but the 35-year-old was able to fly into Gatwick unhindered. Tonight he's beginning a life sentence, a warning some may find parts of Malcolm Shaw's report upsetting.
Caught on a body-worn camera, this is the moment Jamshid Perouz, armed with a claw hammer, launched a frenzied attack on police officers investigating a burglary in Crawley. He's tasered 3 times without effect, but is eventually overpowered after being sprayed in the eyes with pepper spray and hit repeatedly with batons. Today, PC Jess Chick told Hove Crown Court she feared she would be killed or left brain damaged. A firearms officer said he came closer to shooting Peruz than anyone else he'd encountered in 20 years.
Both genuinely believed that their time was up and that they weren't going to be able to go home to their families and see their friends again. And for anyone to suffer an unprovoked attack under such circumstances just because they're at work and doing their job is absolutely unacceptable.
Peruz, who's originally from Afghanistan, was granted asylum in Holland and given a passport, but in 2006 he slit the throat of his female Chinese tenant. He was convicted of murder but released after 6 years and was apparently able to fly into the UK unchallenged in January 2016. The court heard he spat at an EasyJet employee at Gatwick but was released by magistrates and attacked the police officers days later.
Those individuals who are very dangerous, in the case of this individual, somebody who committed an Islamic State-inspired murder in the Netherlands, should never have been allowed into Gatwick Airport, into the United Kingdom in the first place.
Peruz pleaded guilty to 2 counts of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm with intent, burglary and affray. His defence told the court he had a psychotic condition and had been deeply traumatised by witnessing his parents being murdered by the Taliban. The Sussex police officers he attacked say they still suffer terrifying flashbacks and nightmares about how close they came to death or serious injury. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Hove.
Police are advising women to take extra care following a series of robberies in the Southsea area. They've released this CCTV image of a man they'd like to talk to. 4 women have been attacked in recent days. The incidents have happened in Outram Road, Bolton Road, Victoria Road North and Campbell Road, involving women aged between 39 and 81. Extra officers have been deployed to try to reassure people.
I think what's a bit alarming to me and to my team is the level of violence used against 2 of the victims who resisted the robbery. We have an increased police presence in the area. We've got officers out in plain clothes, we've got officers out on foot, in cars, but be vigilant, look about you, and if you see suspicious activity, then please report to the police.
Girl band Little Mix, ITV's X Factor winners in 2011, will be at the GS Bowl in Southampton later this year. They've since starred in the Royal Variety Show, and in 2013 they were at the Isle of Wight Festival, but it will be their first appearance in Southampton. Tickets for their summer shout-out tour in July go on sale next Friday.
You're watching ITV News here in the Meridian region. Coming up,
birds of a feather, why these chickens and thousands like them right across the south are having to flock together.
For more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or news, do give us a call on 0808 10 10 095 or get in touch via Facebook, or why not send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
Today marks 6 months since Theresa May walked into 10 Downing Street as Prime Minister. Pollsters claim the Maidenhead MP is enjoying the longest honeymoon period of any Conservative Prime Minister since the 1950s, stretching ahead of Labour in the polls.
But 6 months into the job, the voices complaining that Theresa May is indecisive and unsure about Brexit are getting louder all the time. Indeed, one political magazine described the Prime Minister as Theresa Maybe. More from our political correspondent, Phil Hornby.
It's never been easy to say what makes her tick, what she really believes in. All she'll say is she believes in getting on with the job. During the referendum campaign, she kept mostly silent. David Cameron despaired. Privately, he compared her to a submarine, on manoeuvres, but out of sight. She'd always dreamed of becoming Prime Minister.
I'm Theresa May and I think I'm the best person to be Prime Minister of this country.
And on that midsummer day she walked up Downing Street, she had her message ready. Hers would be a government for everyone, she said, not just the privileged few.
So on this midwinter day, how's she doing? Well, the economy's doing pretty well.
Some of her early policy announcements, like putting workers on the boards of companies and bringing back grammar schools, quickly ran into opposition from her own MPs. And as for the biggest policy of all, Brexit, well, her critics say she's muddled and she doesn't really have a plan. Ever since she first became an MP, she says the residents of Maidenhead have kept her in touch with what ordinary people are thinking. So, 6 months into her premiership, what are they thinking about her?
I think she's actually doing very well in a very, very difficult position.
Trying to handle the situation where she's doing that very well, calm, and with courage. She's good.
She's not been the best representative for our country, but I don't think she's been the worst that we've had.
I think she's doing far better than Cameron, far more direct, far more decisive. Yeah, I've got great faith in her.
Some of her older fans among Tory MPs think there are echoes of Mrs Thatcher.
Remind him of anybody.
What they have in common is an opposition which seems to be making little impact. Mrs May is way ahead in the polls, despite her Thatcher-like problems with strikes and the health service. What's very unusual about her time as Prime Minister is that she'll be judged by one thing and one thing alone, and she knows it.
Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
In the next few months and the next few years, we'll find out if the MP for Maidenhead really does know how to take the country in the right post-Brexit direction.
Well, Phil Hornby joins us now live from London. Phil, we still don't know what Theresa May's Brexit plan is, or even if she's got one. Have you got any ideas?
Well, we'll get more clues next week, I think. She's going to make a big speech on Tuesday when we are promised more detail, not sure how much detail, about Brexit. Tory MPs here rather amused by the front cover of The Economist magazine last week. Theresa May, they point out, that was one of the biggest cheerleaders of the Remain campaign. And Tory MPs, it won't surprise you to hear, on the whole, are pretty content with Mrs May's first 6 months.
I get the impression from people right across the political divide, actually, that she has really impressed people over the last 6 months. She's got a really difficult hand to play, but I think she's the right person for this time.
Right across the political divide? Not quite.
When it comes to people here in Brighton, when they're really caring about what kind of local economy we're going to have, she stood on the steps of Downing Street saying she was going to govern for the working class, for the whole country, yet her very first budget was one which, yet again, privileged the rich above people on lower incomes. So far there is a gulf between what she's saying and what she's actually delivering.
Phil, regardless of what the Brighton Pavilion MP thinks, the polls do look pretty good for Mrs May, don't they?
Yeah, the Conservatives are riding high, and personally she seems very popular indeed. And part of the reason for that is the mess that Labour are in. When you think Labour, to win the next election, have got to be winning seats in places like Portsmouth and Southampton and Crawley and Reading and even places like Basingstoke, there's precious little sign at the moment that that is going to happen. But of course, things can change.
It certainly can. Phil, thank you very much indeed.
And we've been asking for your views on Theresa May, and as you can imagine, we've had quite a response. Samantha Dearman from Haywards Heath says, what exactly has she done? Still waiting for Brexit, ongoing strikes and the NHS in meltdown just for starters. Sums up a whole lot of nothing to me.
But Amanda Avey from Gosport says, after 6 months, what do you expect? I'm not her #1 fan, but give her a chance.
Jennifer Banks from Basingstoke describes Theresa May as a level-headed lady and a good Prime Minister.
And Helen Ewan from Poole agrees with that and says, given a chance, she will be brilliant.
And Dave Earle from Seaford says, I was pleased she replaced David Cameron, but I'm sorry to say that I'm losing faith in her.
Thank you to everyone who got in touch, and plenty more, of course, on our Facebook page.
Now, if you prefer your eggs free range, you may be disappointed to find that at the end of next month, they may be harder to find. That's because chickens now have to be kept indoors to stop the spread of avian flu.
Well, this week we reported that 9 mute swans tested positive at Abbotsbury Swanery. The popular Dorset tourist attraction is closed for the winter.
Well, as Bob Cruz reports, for farmers whose chickens are supposed to be free range, it's quite a worry.
When you think of free-range hens, this is probably not the image you'd be expecting. 12,000 chickens being kept in barns with no way to go outside. But this is for their own protection. They have to be kept inside by law at the moment to try to stop them catching avian influenza, bird flu. It's been detected in several sites around the UK and across Europe. The risk to public health from this strain, H5N8, is very low, and there's no food safety risk, but it's deadly to poultry, and that's why the doors to this shed are closed and have been since December, to make sure the hens don't come into contact with any wild bird which might be carrying it.
We like to see cattle, poultry, whatever, outside. That's where they belong. The first week, 10 days, was a bit of an issue with birds that have been used to going out, wanting to go out. So we had a few issues with smothering and birds crowding, desperate to get out really. But now over the course of the last month or so they've settled down. We've put various things in the sheds to help occupy them and make life a bit more interesting for them.
Farmers get more money for free-range eggs, and even though they're not going outside at the moment, the eggs these hens are laying can still be labelled free-range. They're allowed to be kept indoors for up to 12 weeks. The question is what happens if the housing order isn't lifted before that time runs out.
If and when the housing order is extended beyond the 28th of February, then the powers that be will have to get together and they would decide then what to do about that free range designation. And that, I think, would be a worry for producers if it were to be extended beyond there and there was some doubt about whether they could keep that free range designation. I think there would be a concern. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We're not there yet, and hopefully before then the risk will have reduced and the order can be lifted.
Bird flu is serious. If there was an outbreak here, the whole flock would have to be destroyed. But the housing order doesn't just apply to farms like this one. Even if you only have a few hens in your backyard, they're supposed to be shut in for safety at the moment. Bob Cruz, ITV News.
OK, time now for the sport with tonight, Kerry Johnston. And Kerry, you start on a really sad note.
Fred, yes, indeed. The football world has been continuing to pay manager Graham Taylor, who sadly passed away yesterday. A minute's applause will be held at tomorrow. Taylor managed England for 3 years in the early 90s. And ahead of tomorrow's championship clash at Preston, the Brighton manager, Chris Hughton, summed up the sentiments of so many in the game who knew him.
Very shocked, actually. Graham is one that I've spoken to on numerous occasions. Of course, played against his teams as a player. Very, very well respected football man. I'm quite sure over the next couple of days we'll be hearing lots more about his wonderful exploits in the game.
Indeed, I'm sure we will. The thoughts of Chris Hughton there following the passing of Graham Taylor. Now, after Wednesday's win over Liverpool in the first leg of the EFL Cup semi-final, Southampton turned their attentions back to the Premier League. Claude Puel's side are away at Burnley tomorrow, hoping to be, having suffered 3 successive defeats in the top flight.
I think it was important, of course, to make this game, this quick game for us against a good player, a strong player. We lost many points in Premier League, and now it's important to come back with the same spirit and to give a good answer.
Well, meanwhile, Bournemouth travelled to Hull City without defender Nathan Ake, who returns to Chelsea after his loan spell. Manager Eddie Howe will be hoping his side can get one over on Hull's new boss, Marco Silva, who takes charge of the Tigers in the Premier League match for the first time. Well, there was disappointment for Reading last night in the Championship. The Royals went down 1-0 against QPR at the Medeski Stadium. Former Reading man Jamie Mackie scoring against his club, their former club, in the 27th minute. The Royals do, though, stay third in the league despite the result. And elsewhere, there's a busy programme of football fixtures. In League One, Oxford travelled to AFC Wimbledon, who are just 1 point and 1 place behind them in the league. And a tough match too for struggling Swindon as they travel to third place Bolton. Meanwhile, in League Two, there are home ties for both Pompey and Crawley. Well, some sailing news for you now, and with the Vendée Globe race approaching its final days, Gosport's Alex Thompson is in second place, just 130 nautical miles behind the leader, and he's making up ground fast. It's a gruelling, single-handed, non-stop race around the world, often known as the Everest of sailing, a 3-month challenge without any form of assistance. Now then, if you like your motoring fast and furious, then this is the event for you. Autosport International is Europe's biggest motorsport show, with exhibitors from across the region. Kevin Ashford has been revving up the action.
Selco Builders Warehouse, proud sponsors of ITV Meridian Sports Report.
This is a show where speed is king, and if that speed's noisy, well, so much the better. This is where motorsport fans can get up close and personal to the cars they see on racing tracks and on their television screens. And if they have the money, well, those fans can become drivers. Reading-based Porsche don't just sell their cars to the big teams, wealthy individuals can own one too.
There's every kind of person on the grid. You know, there are people who've taken over the running of family businesses. There are self-made people. So yeah, there's anyone you can imagine. If they've got the desire and the funds, then they can come on to this. I could stand here for the next 5 hours listing all the different types of people. But yeah, anyone really.
And motorsport is an important part of the UK economy. It's worth some £10 billion, which is why at this, Europe's biggest show of its kind, there's more than 500 exhibitors.
And when they call this event international, they mean it. And that includes the enthusiasts who flocked here.
It's everything about life. Excitement, adrenaline, and pure love to cars.
You like motorsport?
Yes.
Why do you like motorsport?
Which is exciting. If you're going to be serious, you have to be here.
Autosport International runs all weekend. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
From one form of transport to another, with a man who might actually welcome wintry conditions. Matt Hodgson from Brighton has been racing husky dogs for a decade. And next month he represents Great Britain for the first time at the European Dog Sled Championships, no less. Andy Dickinson reports.
Over high, let's go. Go on, head on.
He's been compared to Eddie the Eagle Edwards. Matt Hodgson is a finance broker by day, but in 3 weeks' time, he'll be taking his hobby to greater heights, competing at the European Sleigh Dog Championships at Insel in Germany and racing on snow for the very first time.
I have no idea what to expect. I've never raced on snow. It's my first time racing on snow in a European Championship, so I really have no idea. I'm hoping to get to mid-table. Been training hard, so maybe as a wild card I might do a little bit better, but who knows.
Matt has already competed around the country in his chosen sport, including events in the New Forest. He'll now be racing against mushers from across the continent and on runners rather than wheels.
On wheels, you've got a whole different braking system. I guess the easiest way to compare it is going from rollerblading to ice skating. There's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences.
Envy and Ira here are Canadian Eskimo dogs, an extremely rare breed that almost went extinct in the 60s and 70s, and as you can see, they go quite fast.
It's great fun. It really is great fun. Watching the dogs do what they love, really enjoying stretching out, giving them good exercise. They're not the easiest of dogs to keep, so it's a great way of exercising them and really letting them do what comes naturally to them. The chance to represent the country and go out there and see what we can do against the rest of Europe will be a great experience.
The competition begins on the 2nd of February, one man and his dogs ready for a cold snap. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Brighton.
Well, good luck to Matt with those dogs. That's your sports news tonight.
Good luck to the dogs. Gary, thank you.
Very nice.
Now, as temperatures have tumbled, many of us could do with a touch of tropical warmth, where you don't need to travel far, as one of the greenhouses at the Royal Horticultural Society's gardens at Wisley in Surrey has been turned into a balmy paradise for butterflies.
Yes, indeed. Each year they exhibit more than 6,000 free-flying butterflies. But it takes months to prepare, as Martin Stew tells us.
The natural beauty of tropical butterflies is one of the biggest draws to Wisley's glasshouse every winter. But there's something a little less natural about how they get there. Thousands of pupae arrive in polystyrene boxes, and then each one has to be glued by hand to a bamboo pole.
It is, a pretty fiddly job. It depends, between species, some of these quite small and wiggly, but some of the bigger species are easier to glue on.
The copied X is copying what would happen in their native habitats.
In the wild, they'd make a small silk around a branch. Most of these, you can still see the silk on the top there.
Once glued, they're taken to a puparium, where the moist conditions speed up the change from caterpillar to butterfly. Then, once carefully caught, they can be taken into the glasshouse itself. hot and humid conditions may fog up the camera lens, but they're perfect for the butterflies and perfect for the excitable young visitors.
To be able to get up close to an animal is really lovely for children, and particularly in January and February when it's really cold outside. It's a colourful and enjoyable experience to do inside, and all children love animals really, don't they?
Most of these incredibly beautiful specimens will only live up to about 2 weeks, and that means if you want to have a butterfly display for 8 weeks, you've got to constantly replenish the stock.
So looks like Greg's going to be busy with his glue for the next couple of months. Martin Stew, ITV News.
Well, let's see if Simon's going to make our hearts flutter.
Oh, I see what you've done there.
Yeah.
Well, if you like the snow... No, I'm not, because there's no more to come.
Right.
But it looks pretty. It's just if you want to go anywhere, it can be a bit of a pest, can't it? But we got some brilliant snow pictures that came in. There was enough snow luck to build an actual snowman. Look. Not the biggest, obviously, well, unless Lola, who made it in Basingstoke, has got an overly large, cuddly Rupert, that is. Karen Dighton, normally in Peacehaven, was lucky enough to capture these foxes playing in the snow in her mum's garden in Sussex. Amazing pictures, aren't they? It looks like something David Attenborough would do on a Sunday night on the other channel. Wild animals, of course, cope very well. BBC something. Cope very well with the cold. Domestic animals prefer to stick on a coat before going out. Well, you don't want to be a chilly chihuahua, do you? That's Lucy's dog Sandy in Basingstoke, by the way. And, of course, not all good news. Let the snow's obscured this warning sign that Melanie found in Newbury. Wondering what it's warning of. Oh, snow. Oh. Right, over here then. And the wintry weather already inspired Bob Jacobs to start the auditioning process for this year's Christmas cards. But in other bird news, the strong wind we've had today can also play havoc with your outfit, especially if it's made of feathers. Look, how, if you're a bird, do you smooth them out? Your beak probably don't reach and you've got no hand.
No more snow in the short term?
Well,
oh, I don't like that well. Let's find out more. Simon Parkin.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Now, which would you rather? Cold but dry, or slightly warmer but a bit wetter? Well, we get a bit of both through the weekend. This was how the day started today. John Greenwood out first thing in Brill. There will still be a few wintry showers as we head through tonight and tomorrow. But basically, we've got high pressure developing down to the southwest. So tomorrow is going to be a largely dry and fine day, if on the cold side. Then come Sunday, the weather front starts to sneak in, and that will bring with it some rain. Nothing too heavy, just nuisance rain. Temperatures creeping up a touch, but still not going to feel desperately warm. For tonight, we've got the risk of ice developing, particularly towards the north of the region, where we've seen a few showers earlier today. As we head through tonight, though, it's going to be cold everywhere, and it could be a bit slippery if there are untreated surfaces, with temperatures fairly widely down to -1, -2, could even get down to -3 or -4 in some rural spots. And that cold wind that's been with us is going to stay with us through the night, though not quite as strong tomorrow, but it's going to be a chilly start to Saturday. Like I say, a mostly decent day. You can see there will be 1 or 2 showers here and there, but many of us staying dry. Plenty of sunshine around, but once again the temperatures will struggle. Tomorrow we're looking at highs of around 4 or 5. That wind not as fierce as today, but still taking the edge off the temperatures, so it's still going to feel more like freezing. As for your high tide times, well, you can see in Portland around 10 to 8 in the morning, then 8:30 in the evening, and then it's Saturday night into Sunday that weather front starts to push in the slightly milder air and the cloud and the dampness too. So Sunday looks as though it will be a fairly wet day, but a touch warmer.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
And in just a moment, we've got the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Stacey Poole's got our late news. Do join her if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much for watching. Have a happy and peaceful and hopefully snow-free weekend from all of us.
Happy weekend. Bye.
Bye.